Welcome to She Can and She Will. My name is Mary Ann Brown, also known as the Country Mompreneur, and I'm joined by my co-host, Disa McAllister. We are moms, work-from-home experts, and queens at helping women take control of their lives and prosper in whatever their goals may be. In this show, you will learn from us and other women who kick butt in their lives how to be the best you can be. So sit back and get ready for some fun. Well, we are being joined today by Bernice Bloom, best-selling author. We're super excited to have you joining us today. Before we get too involved, we want to find out all about you, like how you got to where you are today. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, hello, lovely. Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, I write novels, as you said, and I think it all started really when I was sort of having ideas about I've always wanted to write novels, and I was trying to think of ideas. I wanted it to be very kind of character focused. So I tried to think of a character. And then I think certainly I and most of my friends sort of have weight issues from time to time. Everybody wants to lose weight. And then I thought, I wonder if I can play around with that. And it suddenly occurred to me, there are so very few books with overweight women in them. Mm-hmm. And you can be a murderer, you can kidnap, you can stab, you can do every horror imaginable, and people will like you in the book. But overweight, not so sure. And I know it's changing, but it's certainly when I first started doing these, which was back over 10 years ago, it felt to me as if that was something that was missing and almost like a dirty secret and something we shouldn't really talk about. And so I thought, well, I'll make her overweight, but that is an issue, particularly in the first book, which sort of dominates the narrative, really. But she does lots of fun things. She has boyfriends, she has friends, she goes on adventures, and there's a sort of silliness and confidence about her, even though she has the weight issues. And then by the time you get into the third or fourth book, the fact that she's overweight is just a very minor part of what she is. But I'll bring it in to remind people every so often, because that's something I wanted to tackle in the books. So it all started from that. And I did the first one and didn't know what I was doing, put it up on Amazon and just got a tremendous response. I thought, okay, she goes on adventures. And then I kept thinking of ideas, and this character started to sort of develop her own life and start to go off on all sorts of, everything from getting an invitation to a funeral from someone she didn't know, and goes to the funeral, and there's 6 of them there that were invited on the deathbed of this guy. And they don't know who he is or why they've been invited, and just playing with all these ideas. And I don't know, I wanted to sort of set up like an Agatha Christie type thing. Who done it? Why are they there? And so, but she carries everything. So I can tip it. It's mainly very sort of chick-licky, rom-com-y, but I can move into slightly into other types of fiction by taking this character, because she sort of is quite strong now and confident. So yeah, it's been enormous fun having this little friend called Mary Brown with me all the time.
And if you notice, that's my name. So that's what first drew me.
I know. I'm thrilled. I don't know whether you've seen on the Facebook page, every so often I get a whole load of Mary Browns going, oh, that's me.
That's what first drew me, because I saw something came up and it said Mary Brown. It said she was plus size, said she was funny. And I'm like, hey, that's all me. Maybe she wrote about me.
I get emails saying, have you been watching me or something?
I know. Like, you know my life.
Yeah.
I like how you said you can have her do all the different things. Do you like to stay? What made you decide to have it be a comedy overall?
Like, I think that's because I felt naturally drawn to sort of the kind of comic even in very serious situations. And there are issues, and even with the food, there's a very real reason why she has these issues with food. So it's even though some of it is a bit flippant and silly, there's a real heart beneath it, which I think helps it work. But I think it was because I just felt like drawn to. She felt funny, she felt like she had a real confidence, because I don't think it's a sort of humor that she's using to hide the fact that she worries about her weight or anything. I think it feels genuinely like she's just a kind of funny girl who goes around and has a great time with all her friends. So it's funny, it sounds really odd, doesn't it? But she took, the character sort of took me there. She felt like this was the way she'd behave, and off she went.
I feel like that when I'm reading it.
the way that she acts is something that I would do. And it's always something that's the most ridiculous option, and you shouldn't choose that option, but she chooses it. And I'm like, I would have done that. I would have I would have chose the good looking guy over Ted, the guy that you really should pick. Like
we've always done that sort of thing. I know. And one time when I first started work as a sports journalist a million years ago. And when I first wanted to start out, I discovered that there was a big rugby match here between Scotland and England, and the winner was going to win the Grand Slam. And it was quite a big big event. And I discovered that the doctor for the England team was a Scotsman. And I thought, oh, that's quite interesting. I wonder whether he's secretly not mending them properly because he wants Scotland to win. It sounded like he might have sort of an interesting story to tell. So I tried to do an interview with him, and I rang up the surgery, and we're going back, 25 years now. I rang up the surgery to ask whether I could do an interview with him. And they said, I'm sorry, he's not available for interview. So I put the phone down and thought, how do I get in to see him? Hang on, I've just moved to the area. I haven't got a doctor locally. I know, I'll sign up as one of his patients. So signed up as a patient, forged an injury, and went in to see him under false pretenses. And things like that you do along the way, stupid things. Always then I think, yeah, she'd do that. So she does it in a later book you probably haven't come to yet, where she wants to talk to a nurse who she believes is having an affair with one of her friends, and so fakes an injury, and in she goes to her. But obviously with her, I take it on much further, and she ends up having all this treatment for a fake injury because she can't ever tell them she's only joking. So it's just taking what you do that's silly and pushing it as far as you can, the what if.
I've heard some authors say that while they're in the middle of writing, like that writing kind of dominates their life, almost like reading a book, because I'm a reader, that kind of like it colors the rest of your actual life experience, right? As you're writing and these things are coming out, like it's kind of flowing through. Have you found that to be kind of the case? Has Mary Brown kind of influenced your life?
Yeah.
As opposed to vice versa?
I think so. I think as well that when you kind of go through different stages when you're writing a book. When you first start, you have this idea, you think you're the funniest person on earth, and you're writing it and laughing to something. Oh, this no one's ever written anything so funny ever. And then you come to a moment where you're about a third of the way through and you read it and went, well, that's absolute tripe. There's nothing funny about that. And you kind of do all this mental sort of stuff and think, oh, what I'm wasting my life here. This is awful. And then suddenly take shape properly and the rest of it. And so you're so totally absorbed all the time in trying to keep the character authentic and keep her alive and understanding her motivation. So you're almost psychoanalyzing a person that doesn't exist. So it is an absolute dominates your mind. And then by the end of it, and by the last third, you're really thinking, I want to get to the end. I want to finish this now so I can go back and just check it. But then when you get to the end, it's almost like a huge disappointment that you've lost this, you kind of miss her. So you do want to go on this bizarre journey when you're writing about the same character for many books, I think, because you come back to her. And at the end of a book, by the time I get to an end of a book, every time I think, I know what she'd do next. She'd get on a train or something. So the next book, Mary Brown on the train. It always seems to fall naturally into the next book. So she is always there. Yeah.
Do you sometimes find yourself almost doing two at the same time, or is it always just one? Because you have so many different things she's doing. Do you think of another one while you're working on one and sort of start that?
Yeah, very much so. And I'm terrible for one. Yeah, and I can sort of go ahead and commission the cover and start thinking about it when I've got to concentrate on the one I'm doing. So the next book is Mary Brown. It's the St. Lucia mystery, where she goes to St. Lucia and finds this sort of person in the sand. But I've already commissioned the cover for the next one, because I thought the next one I want Mary Brown and her mum, and her mum go on like a Thelma and Louise type kind of thing where they're getting all sorts of trouble. So then I'm really excited about that. But I've got to do the big mystery in St. Lucia first, because that's like fab, and I'm loving that. But yeah, it's very easy to sort of keep getting distracted and keep thinking. And then you start thinking, well, maybe there should be a whole series about her and her mum. Maybe they could go to all these countries. You have to sort of rein yourself in and get back and finish the book you're doing, woman. So, but you're absolutely right. And I tend to write them in Google Docs. And in Google Docs, I've got about 4 that are on the go that I'm trying to ignore while I do the one. Or there's something, I'll think of something and it's not right for this. So I'll put it into the file for another one. So while I'm only writing one, I'm always thinking of and exploring kind of narrative and characters for the next ones.
Do you have a favorite book so far?
of mine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not fair at all.
I know you love them all equally, but
yes, I love them all.
Your children.
I hope they're not listening, because I do like when you say the Adventures of Mary Brown. I quite like that, because I kind of completely lost my mind in that one. And just when, I mean, she gets up to astonishing things. She's on safari and on a cruise, and I just kept thinking, what's the most ridiculous thing that could happen? And that one, I was laughing away while I was writing it. So I like that one. I also really like Mysterious Invitation, the one I described earlier, which is where she gets invited to a funeral, someone she's never heard of. And
what's that one called?
It's called Mysterious Invitation. And that is just, she gets an invitation to a funeral, and she doesn't know who the person is. So she rings her mum and says, which uncle is this? Who's died? And mum's never heard of this person. So she rings the solicitors, and he went, you're the sixth person to ring. There were 6 of you invited to this funeral, and none of you seems to know the deceased. Yet he asked you on his deathbed, and it moves between him and his life, the guy who died, and them in this room the night before the funeral, trying to work out why he invited them. And but eventually it all comes together. So I enjoyed that one. It was quite hard to plot it. A lot of them carry themselves, but that was a lot of plotting. But I think I do like that one, because it's a very different sort of book.
That sounds very interesting. That reminds me of my mom. This isn't exactly the same, but my mom used to call me randomly and say, your Uncle Louis died. No one I knew. I'm from a very large Italian family. So she would call and tell me people I had never heard of. Are you going to go to the funeral? I don't even know who this person is.
I think it's a full-time job to go to all of them. I can't, Mum. Yeah, I know. But you do get to the stage, don't you? I like sorry, that sounds crass, but I like the funeral idea. But I like that because sometimes we've all got really busy lives, and sometimes the only time you catch up with friends and family, isn't it? And you go there and you see all these people you haven't seen for ages. And I kind of thought the idea of going to a funeral and not knowing anyone and not knowing the person, it just felt so sort of, bizarre and counter sort of what you'd expect, isn't it? So I thought I'd have some fun with that. So I'm pleased with that one.
So I know you're still working on more Mary Brown books. Do you think you're going to keep staying with Mary Brown books, or do you think sometime you might branch off and do something else?
I did start a series called Sunshine Cottage, about these 5 sisters. There's 5 people. There are 4 sisters and the mum. There are 5 women living in this cottage, and for various reasons, these 20-something women have ended up back living at home. And it's the first one's called Return to Sunshine Cottage, where one of the sisters had left and has now come home, and the father's going, when am I going to have a house full of women? And it's all about, and each book's about a different sister and their adventures. And it's been well received. I've done 2, and there's another one out soon. But most people say, "Oh, really enjoyed that. It was brilliant. When's the next Mary Brown book out?" So I thought, there seems to be such a kind of fascination with Mary Brown and love of her. I think I'll keep them going, but I might branch out, like I just said, into something like Mary Brown and Mum books, and Mary Brown and Mum end up in jail, and Mary Brown and Mum go to America and take her mum with her and make it so that you've got 2 different age groups.
So you can get into her life. Has anyone approached you about doing a movie yet?
Oh God, no. If you know anyone, do you know anyone in the industry? What I'm going to
I keep thinking when I read this that it would be an awesome movie. So I feel like it would be a great series.
Thank you. I get so many emails from people saying the same thing. And I think, so what I've done actually is, we'll see how this goes. It might make a book all on its own, this one, but I've managed to get accreditation and book myself to go to Cannes Film Festival.
Ooh.
Just going for the weekend. Yeah. I'm gonna buy a ticket, go there, and I've managed to get accreditation. So I'm just going to go into events and say, hello, my name's Bernice Bloom. These are my books. I'm sure it'd make a great film, and just see if I can get it into the hands of any directors or producers or any movie people. Because in the course of 2 days, if I can just hand out 10 packs of information, you never know, do you? So
that's a great idea.
I feel like you need to get into the hands of Reese Witherspoon's company, because I think this is the kind of
she's the one, isn't she?
Yeah,
if you hear about a woman being arrested on the Cannes seafront chasing Reese Witherspoon, it's going to be me, okay? You might have to burn this tape, otherwise I'll end up in jail. But I'm just going to go, and whoever's there, I'll just hi. And I think, what's the worst thing? Well, the worst thing happens is end up in jail, I suppose. But I think
we'll just lead to another book, though. There you go.
Yes, I think he's got another book all over it, hasn't it, or a big feature. So we'll see. So maybe I'll come back from Cannes and have a massive film deal, and then
Yay. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, fingers crossed. So our underlying theme on She Can and She Will is women helping women. Do you have any like just tips or insider tricks on any aspiring writers who might be out there on how to publish?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's never been a better time to be a writer. There's not much money around, but there's not much money around in anything. But if you want to publish, you can publish your own blog, you can put the social media allows you the opportunity to publish your views and your thoughts and to kind of garner feedback. And things like Substack allow you to write. But also, if in terms of publishing a book, self-publishing now is great. And it's relatively straightforward to do. I mean, it really isn't hard to do. It's just you have to have quite a logical mind, which I don't. So it took me ages to grasp it. But it's all there for you, and if you can get yourself a cover designer and a good editor to go through, and then if you've got a story to tell, write it. The key to it all is to write a good book. I mean, it sounds so obvious, but a lot of people just rush to publish, and I think it's just worth if you've got an idea, really sit with it and think about it. But have confidence, because I think a lot of people don't ever meet writers or come across writers, and they seem quite otherworldly, don't they? And you sort of think, oh, could I do that? But you can, if you have a story to tell, it's a case of sitting down and writing it and getting a first draft out. And no first draft is ever any good. So you get the bones of the story down and then work on it. But a lot of it is confidence, because you'll read it and think it's rubbish. And instead of thinking, oh, this is rubbish, I'm hopeless, I'm never doing this again, I'm going to drink wine, you have to just sort of stop and go, no, have some wine, obviously, but then think, I can make it better, because you can. If you can write a first draft, you can write a second and a third, and you can make it good. So it's all there, because the route to publishing isn't full of gatekeepers like it was. It's not you've got to get an agent and no agent wants you, and then you've got to get a publisher and no publisher wants you. If you go through that conventional route, you can get yourself an agent and a publisher, but there's a way to reach the mass market, because sort of 90% of books are sold through Amazon. You can publish directly onto Amazon. I know it's an awful thing to say, but that's where people are buying books now. Yeah. And you can sell your books to lots of people and then get a can and try and flog them to film people. But you can do it yourself in a way that perhaps people didn't even perceive before. I think perhaps in the past you felt you needed a big publishing company behind you so you can do it. If you want to write a book now, you can absolutely do it and get it out there, or you can still go the conventional route and find an agent and and find a good publishing home for it. And
do you feel like is that what you did? Did you self-publish initially?
I self-published, yeah, because I self-published the first one and got a tremendous response, which I wasn't expecting. And then I had my agent, because I do some non-fiction books under another name, and I went to my agent and he sent it out to publishers, and they made what seemed like a really low offer. I talked to writing friends who said that's all they're offering now, but I knew I was making more than that in self-publishing. And then they started talking about they're in charge of the cover design, they're in charge of which shops it goes into, and then you've lost the rights to it, so you can't go and flog the film rights to someone, and I haven't got them translated, but I could get them translated into German, which is quite a big book market, or Italian or French, or all the European countries are quite good book markets. So there's loads of scope. It's a lot of work, but it kind of, you feel a bit more in control of things. And certainly the offer they made me for the books was not what I can make publishing them myself. So there's a lesson there for someone who, it's not that you make a lot more with publishers, because if you go into a big publishing company, you'll see it's all marble hallway, someone's paying for that, and it's only the writers. So
how did you market it while you were self-publishing? Like, how did you get all the people to see it?
The first one I didn't market at all, and I think I just hit a kind of a moment with the fact that it was about an overweight woman, and when people randomly clicked through, must have somehow clicked on it. And then I think there is an algorithm within Amazon, whereas if you get a lot of clicks, you get a lot of clicks, and people must have shared it with other people, because then that was just without any support at all. And then I started doing Facebook advertising, because the Bernice Bloom site on Facebook it's got a lovely group of people who chat to each other, and they share weight loss tips on there and everything. And so, hello, hang on, there's a lot of interaction, and it works very well. So I thought Facebook was the place that I should advertise, and and that grew it and grew it and grew it. And that was something I had to learn, how to advertise the books and how to use Facebook advertising. But there were lots of courses out there, so you end up doing all these courses, and then they'll change something, you do another course. And then I've built a newsletter. I have a newsletter that goes out every month, and so now I've got a mailing list of people who I can go directly to tell them about books. So it's slowly, I mean, it's taken a while, but it's now slowly developed into a little industry. I've got a lovely woman who does the covers for me, and an editor, and all the various staff that you would have if you worked for a publishing company.
I like this. This is awesome because I sort of want to write, and so it's fun. I have 4 or 5 different half done, because I don't know if you get to the halfway point and you're like, I don't know how to end it.
Yeah.
I've gotten a few that are to that point, but it's like what you said, where I just don't feel like they're good enough. But I've not let anybody else read to tell me, yes, they are, or no, they're not.
Yeah, so. Yeah. Because it is hard. I think you're right. You could, I think everybody can write, when they say everyone can write a book, I think everyone can write a book, obviously, but whether it's one that is appealing to people is another thing. But it's that the first third, you're setting it all up and you've got all these characters all great, and then it's sort of like, right. I don't do that. By the end of the first third, something needs to be happening. That you need something sweeping in that kind of changes lives or creates a sort of a launch pad for the rest of the story. So, and it's at that point that you're starting to think, I don't know what to do now. And so I think a lot of people get to the sort of write 30,000 words and then think, oh no, you've got to get it out and carry on tonight. Okay, when we finish this, you dig it out. Get one of them arrested or something.
Yes.
Oh, shake it right out. What is your? Mary Ann and I are both project managers. We've combined forces, and we have a company called the PM Agency. So this is a question very dear to our heart. What is your favorite way to stay organized?
Oh God, yeah. I'm very much a sort of diary and a pen sort of person, and I do lists. The list where the joy of ticking them off means that you put things on you've already done, so you can tick them off first. But I don't think of myself as being a particularly organized person, but I am to a certain extent. I write things in the diary all the time. So if someone says to me, this is due next week or that's due next week, I've got notes all the time, double check when that's due. So every day I've got little things written in my diary to check when VAT is due in tomorrow, check this, check that. So I just keep on top of things. But I wouldn't say it's the most sophisticated setup, but I kind of get by. But I don't think of myself as being very organized. Organization's hard, isn't it? Hard to. You're very good, are you? Are you kind of? Have you got all sorts of sophisticated professional systems operating
for our clients?
Yeah.
Our clients are super organized. Me, I have legal pads. That's my.
Yeah.
We both do online organizing and then pen and paper. The pen and paper is like a complete. It just helps your brain.
Yeah.
I have a stationery addiction, so that's my problem.
Yeah, stationery is great, isn't it? I do use Hootsuite for my social media posts, and I find that really useful. So I'll put in before the day book's out, I'll put in out today, see you, click here, and then the day before, out tomorrow. So I do all the ads and all the rest of it and put them all in. And then like on Valentine's Day, I'll put stuff in. I've got stuff in for Easter. So I'm organized in terms of, I know social media posts are going out with some regularity, and I find that quite a useful system for sending things out. Otherwise it's those things that you forget, isn't it? You don't need to put a note on Facebook with a funny joke, but if you don't do it, then why would people follow you? So
you do all your own promotions and everything yourself? You don't have people doing that? There are project managers that you could hire. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I've heard they're very expensive. I do it all myself. Yes, I do.
Like a one woman army right there.
It's pretty cool. It is. Sometimes you do think, oh God, this is driving me nuts. But I've been doing it a little while now, and I fall into a bit of a sort of every Friday I check all the ads and make sure they're still, because the way the Facebook advertising works, you'll put an ad up and then it feels as if for a couple of days nothing happens, and you feel like I'm wasting my money, I'm spending this money every day and that's not working, and you're about to pull it down and then suddenly it does start working. So you think, oh great, and then slowly your return declines and you have to slightly change the audience or change the ad or change the wording, and if you tweak it then you get another couple of days where it's not very good and then it takes off again. So it's a constant playing with it to make sure slightly different people are seeing it and slightly different way. But I do that every Friday morning. Yes, it is. But I think when you start, it feels quite overwhelming. But then when you, like with all things, once you're into a sort of routine, every Friday I take a look at them and make sure everything's still actually making money from my books. Then, and sometimes you discover odd things like they're selling so well in Germany. Maybe I should think about doing all the, in Texas or, wherever it is. So keeping an eye on that. And then I noticed, it's quite interesting actually, because I noticed, look, Facebook advertising gives you good feedback on who's clicking on the ads and going through to Amazon. And a lot of older people, and with my heroine being 30, I imagined that my demographic was somewhere between 25 and 45 or 50. But actually, it's not. It's much older people. And the majority of people who are clicking out of Facebook to Amazon are 60 plus, which is when I thought to myself, maybe I should introduce her mum a bit more and do a book with the mum, because they might, if they're the people who are clicking on, they might appreciate that. So it's also it gives you an idea of where you're all and I don't want to change her fundamental character based on ads, but I could introduce her mum a bit more, so maybe that would appeal to them. I don't know. So
you've mentioned Amazon a few times. We'll absolutely put a link in the show notes below so people can click through. Is that your preferred method of?
It is. It's just easier. And I know that Amazon aren't the most perfect company on earth, and in an ideal world, I'd be in all the lovely little local bookshops you see. But the problem is that that's where people find it easiest to buy books and easy to click through. And if you put a link, they just click through and they buy them. So I tend to stick to Amazon, because Amazon have this thing where you can either be with Amazon only, exclusively with Amazon, in which case your books also go into into Kindle Unlimited thing, which is like an Amazon library where you pay a certain amount, a bit like Netflix, where you pay a certain amount every month and you can access as many books as you like. And you can make quite a lot of money from that, people just dipping in and borrowing them like a library. But if you're not exclusively on Amazon, if you're with any other publishers, you can't have that option. So you have to make a decision about whether to be exclusive or not. And since Amazon sells so many books, I made the decision, and they're all over the world now. It's like no one can not get them. Someone like Barnes and Noble, if you're in Czechoslovakia, perhaps or whatever, Czechoslovakia doesn't exist, does it? Luxembourg or something. then you can't get them. So with Amazon, at least you know that everyone can get them. Everyone can click through. And I know people do have an issue with Amazon. I completely understand that, but at the moment, it's the easiest way to get the books to the most people.
So you don't print them and have them in any bookstores whatsoever then?
No, I don't. No, that would be the next after the huge movie deal, obviously. Once Steven Spielberg's come on board.
All right,
then that maybe.
So for our listeners who might not have ever read Mary Brown, how much time do they have? Because book launches are the most exciting thing ever, right? If they're starting from the beginning, how much time do they have to catch up before you release the next?
Yeah, and how many are there total too?
So there's at the moment there are 10.
Okay.
Wow.
Woo!
Which
that's a mission right there. Yeah, that's a challenge.
Yeah, okay. Mary Brown political party. Yeah, they and the next one is out in August.
Okay, cool.
So they might have to give up their jobs to have enough time.
That's some good summertime reading. That's perfect.
Yeah, and there are a couple. There's one like a book called Mary Brown is Leaving Town, where she goes off to this weight loss retreat with her mum actually, and all sorts of absurd things happened. And there's books about her that
will demonstrate what it looks like so you can see.
And there's Don't Mention the Hen Weekend as well, which is another summary one about she goes on a hen weekend and they end up they obviously get arrested and also dressed as nuns, and it's just but it's very summary, so it's a nice one if people want to kind of feel like they're lying on a sunreader laughing.
Bernice Bloom, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been fun.
Lovely to talk to you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening. For more information, join us at thepmagency.com.